If Jesus is who he says he is, we need to listen to him. We're coming out of Matthew chapter 16, where Peter declares that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Peter and the disciples know this in their heads, but Peter, James, and John are about to get to experience this and to see it with their own eyes. Let's look in verse 1. It says, "After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, 'Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you and one for Moses and one for Elijah.' So they go up on this mountain, and these 3 disciples get a glimpse of who Jesus is. They get a glimpse of the glory that Jesus left behind when he became a man to walk on this earth. Just for a moment, it bleeds through and they see his face shine like the sun, and they see he truly is the Christ. He truly is the Son of the living God. And in responding, Peter tends to always have something to say, whether it's right or wrong or smart or not so smart. He says something that seems not so smart here, and he ends up getting interrupted in verse 5. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, 'This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him.'" This is the voice of God himself coming from the heavens, speaking to Peter and James and John. What a privilege for them. This would change their lives. But let's look at what this voice says. First, it declares that Jesus is his beloved Son. It's exactly what Peter had said. He said, "You're the Son of the living God." God is confirming here exactly what Peter said about Jesus. But notice he's his beloved Son. And then he says, "I am well pleased with him." Think about this in the context of what Jesus just told the disciples was about to happen. That he was going to Jerusalem and he was going to suffer many things. And then that he was going to be killed. And we know that he was going to the cross, taking our sins, and he was going to experience the wrath of God the Father poured out on him. But think, this is the beloved Son of God. This is the Son in whom God is well pleased. Y'all, this should make us appreciate at such a deep level what it is that Jesus did. That Jesus, who had this perfect relationship with God the Father, who was his beloved Son, who lived a life that pleased him, took our sin, and God poured out his wrath on him on our behalf. We should be so thankful for this. But then he gives them a very clear command. He says, "Listen to him." Now, if a big booming voice from the heaven tells me to listen to someone, I'm probably going to listen to him. But what we need to realize is he is telling us exactly who Jesus is. He is the Christ. He's the Son of the living God, just like Peter said. And the result of that is you need to listen to him. Well, the disciples' response here, when the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and they were terrified. Obviously, I would be too. I'd be flat on my face immediately. But notice what Jesus does. Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and have no fear." And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. This is Jesus, the beloved Son of God, the glorious one, whose glory is shining on their faces. And yet, he stoops down to lift them up. Jesus, in his gentle and his lowly heart, reaches down to people like Peter and James and John, to people like you and me, and he assures them, have no fear. Why do they have to have no fear? Because of what Jesus is going to do. Because Jesus is with them. And that because when their faith is in Jesus and his work that he's going to do on the cross, they have to have no fear. Because they can stand confident in the presence of God with the righteousness and the goodness and the glory of Christ clothing us. This is the good news of the gospel. This would transform Peter and James and John. James would become the first apostle to be killed for his faith. Peter writes in 2 Peter 1, 16 through 18 about how they were eyewitnesses of Jesus' majesty. And in 1 John, John would write about how they had seen with their eyes and touched with their hands this truth. Let's listen to their words and know who Jesus truly is. He is the Son of the living God. And if he is truly that, we must listen to him.